Hi everyone, today I want to show you how to make these super cute hair scrunchies. They are the perfect project for using up small scraps of yarn that you have left over from your bigger projects. So you can make them in any size, just literally by varying the amount of rows. This big one, for instance, is I used 20 rows on my Addi 46 needle machine. This little guy here was just 10 rows, and the one I'm going to show you how to make today is this one, and this is 15 rows. But you don't have to stick to those row counts. That's the beauty of this project. You can use whatever row counts you want to match the scrap yarn that you've got left. So for this project, you're going to need your yarn that you want to work with. Scrap yarn is fine, whatever you've got left laying around. You're going to need not one, but 2 colours of waste yarn. Make sure that your waste yarn is different in colour to both your working yarn and to each other. You'll see why in a little while. You're going to need a crochet hook. You're going to need some embroidery scissors, a tapestry needle, and most importantly, a hair tie. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So to start off our scrunchie, we're going to cast on and knit 8 rounds of waste yarn. I'm going to use the hack I've discovered that makes the waste yarn from this cast on edge really easy to remove. So if you haven't watched that video already, you might want to go and take a look at it because it explains it in a lot more detail. So let's cast on and knit 8 rows of our waste yarn. So just finishing row 8 now. Then I'm going to cut my waste yarn and drop the tail into the middle. And for this method, I'm doing 1 round of contrasting colour waste yarn. Just one. So you want to go ahead and knit 1 more round of waste yarn. Try and make sure that this waste yarn is a different colour to both your waste yarn and your main working colour yarn, because it will make your life so much easier when it comes to sewing the scrunchie together. So once you've done your 1 round, cut your waste yarn, grab the main colour yarn that you want to use and attach it to your yarn feeder, 0 your counter, and then you're going to knit however many rows you want to make for your scrunchie. For my big scrunchies I do 20, for my small scrunchies I do 10, and for this medium size scrunchie I'm going to be doing 15 rounds. So I'm going to go ahead and knit my 15 rounds and I'll meet you back once we're done. Just finishing off round 15 now, and when you get to the end of round 15 you want to cut your main working yarn. Leave a sensible sized tail but nothing too big, and then you want to cast back on your waste yarn. For this top edge I'm not going to use a contrasting waste yarn because the top edge waste yarn is really easy to remove anyway, so I don't really feel like it's necessary. If you want to you can, but I'm not going to. So leave a decent sized tail on your waste yarn so it doesn't unravel easily once we get sewing the scrunchie together, and then we want to carry on and do 8 more rows of waste yarn. Just finishing off the final few stitches of waste yarn. Then again you just want to cut your yarn, leave a decent tail, make sure that last hook takes in your yarn so you don't start unraveling everywhere. And then the best bit about casting off with waste yarn is we just want to carry on and do 2 full rotations, and as you go round your yarn work will just drop off the machine and fall hopefully into the middle of the machine like that. So now we don't need the machine anymore, we can take this away and I'll show you how we assemble our scrunchie. Once your yarn is off your machine you want to give it a bit of a stretch, even out all those ends. Be careful on this end not to start tugging your waste yarn and undoing it, like this. And once you're happy with how you've stretched out your stitches, you want to turn your work inside out so that the wrong side of the tube is facing you all the way around, like that. Then you need to grab your hair tie. This next bit can be a bit fiddly, but I find if you scrunch the tube up and put the hair tie over, you can quite easily pop the hair tie into the middle of your work. And then really carefully, you want to make sure that none of your ends are trapped either inside the tube or inside the middle of the work. So you're wanting to try and bring all those ends out so that they're hanging on their correct side of the work. And then what you want to aim to do is to find where the rounds begin at both the top end of the work and the bottom end of your work, and you want to line them up. You can see where they start because your ends for your waste yarn will peep. So here, this is our first stitch because the waste yarn is coming out of it, and here again the waste yarn is coming out of here, so this is our first stitch. I like to crochet slip stitch my two tubes together. I find it's the way that works best for me, but if you have another way that works better for you, then by all means go ahead and do that. You can sew them together, but I like to crochet them together. So once you've found the beginning of the round, you put your hook through both hoops, and it's quite easy to spot your working yarn in these because it's sandwiched in between your contrasting waste yarn, which is why I said it's quite important to have contrasting waste yarn that doesn't match the colour of your work that you're using. So you want to pull a loop through, take one from the front and pull it through, take one from the back and pull it through, and you repeat this process all the way around your scrunchie, making sure that you are grabbing every single loop all the way around, because if you miss one, once you take your waste yarn off, your work is going to unravel. The reason I like this slip stitch method is it gives a really cute braid pattern around the edge of the scrunchie, which I think works really well. So again, front, back, front, back. I'm going to go round and finish this scrunchie off, and I'll meet you once we get round to the beginning of the round, just to show you how to finish everything off and remove the waste yarn and tidy up and finish off your scrunchie. I'm just finishing off the last couple of stitches now. These can sometimes be a little tough to find because they like to hide, but just go careful and you should be able to find them just fine. So that last one, just going to take from in there. And then what I like to do is to get both the ends of the main working yarn, pop my hook over them and pull them through the last loop just to make sure they don't come untied. There, so that's our scrunchie all joined together. I'm just going to have a quick check for any dropped stitches. Okay. So firstly, I'm going to remove the waste yarn from the cast off edge because that comes off really quickly. You literally just keep pulling. Ooh. Just keep pulling until it comes off. Once you're on the last round, you just pull and they all come undone through, and then you pull your tail out like that. That's that one done. Now with the back edge, the reason we use the contrasting colour of just one round of the waste yarn is because Normally what you'd have to do is you'd have to find the edge here and pull it out, and it can take a while, it can get tangled, and lots of people just end up cutting the yarn, which I think is a waste because you can reuse this waste yarn several times over. So what you want to do is you want to find the opposite side of your scrunchie to where your cast on is. You want to grab a loop on the opposite end, pull it so it's big, and then pull one side first, and then pull the other side, pull the other side, sometimes it can be a bit tight in there, and then you literally pull the waste yarn off, and it is as simple as that. It comes off in one big piece. You can then unravel it in piece, and you can reuse that yarn over and over again, and there's a lot less wastage. And then to finish off, I like to just tidy up my ends. When they're in the same place here, you can't tie them together, so I like to just thread a tapestry needle and push one of the ends a stitch or so down so that we've got something to work with. And then in this case, I find the most secure way of securing them is just to tie a couple of tight knots. And feed the tails inside the scrunchie. So you can do both tails at once. You want to go down into the stitch closest to where your knots are and just run your needle in between the two layers for about 5 centimeters or so. You can pull the tails back out of the work at the other end, pull them tight. Then if you pull your ends taut like that, give them a snip, and then when you pull your work out, the ends will hide in there. And there we have it, one finished medium-sized scrunchie. And just for comparison, I'll show you one last time next to the small scrunchie and the large scrunchie, so you can get a feeling again of what they look like when they're done. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think, and I look forward to seeing you again for another tutorial really soon. Bye.